and Michael Fields from Colorado Rising Action. You're the executive director. Tell me quickly about Rising Action and your short take on Amendment 73.
Sure. So Colorado Rising Action, we are a 501c4 group educating Coloradans about different policy proposals, and this is one of them. I was the former state director for Americans for Prosperity, and I am the governing board president at a charter school in Aurora, a former teacher there too. So education runs in my family, and glad to be talking about this issue. One thing is, it's really good that we have Tabor in this state because it allows us, all as citizens, to have a say on if taxes are increased or not. And Amendment 73 is a big proposal. It's a big ask, $1.6 billion ask. And the problem that I have with it is there aren't guaranteed outcomes in this, right? So, is student achievement going to go up because of this? We don't know. We do know that this will impact the economy. We have the #1 economy in the country. We want to keep it that way. And so, this is something that we look at the education funding in general. Education funding has been going up. Teacher pay has been going down during that same period of time. So I think people want to fix the structural problems with our education system before increasing any kind of taxes.
Public education, K through 12, kindergarten through 12th grade. So, Michael, give me some comments on what you just heard.
Well, I think one big thing is that the notion that this will only impact 8% of Coloradans is not true. The fact that the corporate tax rate is going to go up 30%, that small businesses are going to get hit by this, that consumers are going to end up feeling the burden of it. So to say that this is just something that will impact the wealthy is not true. But also, Governor.
So let's go to that specifically. So what Martha was talking about was the increase in the state income tax on individuals. How would the corporate tax rate be affected?
So that goes up 30%. So it's on the state level.
From what to what?
So it's at the 4.63% right now, and it goes up 1.37% additionally. So that is over 29%.
Is it 1.37 or 1.7?
I think it's 1.37.
It goes up to 6%, but
Okay.
really that takes us from the 3rd lowest corporate taxes in the country to the 9th lowest corporate taxes in the country for the states that have property taxes.
And it's just for the
Or
C corporations.
For corporate
Just
taxes.
C corporations.
Yeah,
It's
so
not
the only
for small businesses.
really big ones, yeah, not for S corps or anything.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that when I read it.
It's there.
Well, it wouldn't. S corporations don't pay income taxes anyway. The S corporation flows to the individual or the entity
That's the problem.
And in terms of actually, most C corporations are small corporations. They're not. So I wouldn't tell people that it only affects large corporations. I would guess that well over half of corporations are relatively small corporations. In fact, I'd be willing to bet a large sum of money on
I would too.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say too that when Governor Hickenlooper was asked about this last week or the week before, he basically said that these kind of tax increases are a big ask, and when you raise taxes on people that are wealthy, then they could leave the state, they could go somewhere else, they could have a big impact on our economy, and so even he was a little bit concerned about how this would impact our economy. I also think though that
let me stop you there
for that, but I think on the education side it's important. Where is this money going towards? $150 million went in above inflation this last year for education, was put into that. And if that money we can guess on this, but do you think that every teacher, all 50,000 teachers in Colorado, are going to get a $3,000 increase to their salary? I don't think so. The problem that we have is 53% of the money that we spend on education does not go to goes to instruction. Only 53% goes to instruction.
And where does the other 47% go?
That's a great question. I mean, we talk about a pension issue. We talk about the debt that we're paying in certain states or certain districts for buildings, et cetera. Administrative costs, we can get into administrative costs, but we have higher administrative costs here in Colorado than we do the average in the nation, and I think that number is too high.
Unfunded mandates are certainly a key issue, but there are different ways to respond to them. And one way is to respond minimally to them, to not necessarily hire staff that are going to generate 100-page reports. And I've got to tell you, I've been involved in education from my days as a student at Fairview High School in Boulder on through being a trustee at Princeton University. And I've got to tell you, I know that we have a tremendous number of administrators, great people, who I don't think we need. compared to needing those resources in the classroom.
Then you need to address that with your local school board. I mean, hello, that's what local school board's elected for, and that's why this is such a great amendment, is because all of the monies will be spent at the local level. I'll tell you, up in my district, in Pruder School District, we have about 2% of our budget that's spent on administrative overhead. Now, it might be different elsewhere in the state. Get it under control. It's so much easier to deal with it at a school board level and at a school district level than it is when you're trying to go to the legislature and tell them to dictate what local districts should do.
Okay, but that's backwards. That's backwards, because what you're saying is give us the money and then talk to your school board about how to use it. I'm just saying from a taxpayer's perspective, I think what taxpayers are saying, and I think the problem you run into, and I question that 2% figure, by the way, and we'll check that. But I think what taxpayers are saying is show us how the money is going to go to teachers first, and then we'll approve this. But if you're saying give you a blank check, and we're going to depend on 176 or whatever is school districts to make the right decision, I don't think taxpayers are going to buy that.
You know, you can get into statistics. You can make them say anything you want. He can be talking about one thing with administrative costs. I can be talking about another thing. So really, you can't go there unless you dig into the weeds. And I really don't want to dig.
Well, I have dug into the weeds. And hold on. And if you look at the, if you go to the statistics, there are very basic breakdowns between in Colorado and for all 50 states of how much money goes into in-class instruction and how much money goes everywhere else. And in Colorado, only a slim majority of our dollars go to in-class. And so I guess what I'm saying is all of us want teachers to be paid more. But we need to come up with a mechanism that says if we're going to spend $1.6 billion of taxpayer money, let's make sure it goes to teachers. Perspective of a very significant number of taxpayers, and maybe a majority, is that too much money goes into resources not in the classroom. I think most taxpayers want teachers to be paid more, and that a lot of them are going to say this doesn't guarantee that.
I totally agree with you. I went throughout the state and gathered signatures. I got 4,500 signatures
She was our
on my
top
own.
signature gatherer.
And I will tell you, I had conversations.
We have
with,
a trophy for you after the show.
We had conversations with people. We turned in over 180,000 signatures. We had conversations with people around the state, and that's what we heard. Well, I want to make sure it goes into teacher pay. It's like, okay, well, talk to your local school board, because that's the need we have. We started our schools last year with about 3,600 teachers short throughout the state.
But that's not, you're not getting their message. Their message isn't, we're going to give you money and we want it to go a certain way. Their message is, show us how, if we give you the money, it's going to go to teachers. And you're not doing that, and maybe there isn't any way to. But Michael, did you have something you?
I just think you look at the track record of how the education system spending that money, and you can look at just this decade. You had students go up 6%, you had teachers go up 8%, you had administration go up 34%. And until that problem is fixed, there might be people that agree to raise taxes on a local level for their district because they really like it. But a statewide tax hike, I think, is really going to run into problems like it did in 2013, like it did in 2011. These initiatives got crushed because they didn't feel like this system is using the money most effectively. And so until they make that case, I don't see how this passes.
I agree with that.
I think you have to take a really hard look. I mean, Kathy.
I think the big thing with this too is looking at it from a Colorado voter's perspective. They look and say, you know what, we have a certain amount of taxes that we pay the state. And then we hear, from legislators, from other people, that certain things are priority. Roads are a priority. Teacher pay is a priority. And I think the question is, what are we spending the rest of that money on? And is it more important than the things that we say are priorities? And so I think that's another thing in people's head, and saying we have a $30 billion budget. Not all of that is general fund money, obviously.
Right, little over half.
But if there's more money that wants to go to education, legislators can discuss that. They can talk about it, and they can put more money into education, just like they did last year. But I think the key is saying, you know what, if that is a priority, as a family, we go home and say we want to stay in our house, so we pay our mortgage first, and we make sure that we take care of other things after that. If teacher pay, if education, if roads are a priority, put that at the front of the line, and then build the rest of the budget around that.
In our students and in our economy.
particularly in our rural communities.
All right, Michael?
I think people would be more confident in that if they knew that this money would specifically raise achievement for students and give us a better education system here in Colorado. I think there's no guarantee that that's going to happen, and that's one of the big issues. Back when Amendment 66 was up, University of Colorado lead School of Business did a study on the economic impact, and basically said over a 5-year period, it would cost $250 million in economic activity and 6,500 jobs. I'm guessing, I haven't seen a study on this
It would generate
one.
that?
No, it would cost. It
that.
would be a drag on the economy that way. And looking at that, I think this would be. You're going to see similar numbers as studies come out about this proposal. But I agree. I want a world-class education for our students here. As a former teacher, as somebody who my youngest just started in a Jeffco school, kindergarten, and I think I want to invest in positive things. Teachers to get paid well. Good teachers to get paid even more. The problem is this is a really a blank check without the kind of accountability that we need.
So, a couple things. One is the blank check. It seems like there may not be any other choice, that if you believe in local control, you have to have faith in your school board, and if you don't, it's up to you to put people together or to run for school. I mean, my gosh, a lot of school boards, nobody runs for them, right, Norma? So I mean, you can
No
really
pay.
get involved at a high level. On the economic study that Leeds did, based on what you said, I don't buy that, and let me tell you why I don't buy that. Because it may be a drag temporarily because you're investing, but what's the economic value of having a kid who's better prepared for college? What's the economic value of a kid who can progress to a better job? So,
and if that was the case, I agree with you. Yeah. But there's no guarantee that spending $1.6 billion and impacting the economy in some way is definitely going to give us those outcomes. And I think if people saw us prioritize the state budget, if they saw us, spend more money giving it to teacher pay, I think you would have a different kind of argument.
Let's say, if we're in agreement that teachers need to be paid more, which that's certainly my perspective, and we need more teachers and better teachers, and we can get into the quality of teaching and instruction and all that separately, but how do you is there any mechanism to guarantee that?
I think there's several mechanisms that could impact it. One is I'm not going to vote for a tax increase on the local level if my district is not doing a good job with this one. I think legislators also can look at this and say, you know what, we have a say over what happens in the budget, and if districts aren't doing this, if teacher pay continues to decline, why are we going to invest $150 million more dollars that are going to go to administrative costs, et cetera? I think that is a way to do it. And I think as voters, we can say once we see changes that show that teachers are getting paid more, that money's going into classrooms, then they might be more likely to approve something like this.